Hello there, we are live from our studios here in Kokomlemle on digital address GA0992539. Our lead story is this hour. 18 feared dead, 20 feared dead, 17 people including a child, as 45 others are injured in yet another accident when two vehicles collided on the Tamale Temple Road. We'll hear from eyewitnesses and get updates from the police command there. Another baby test positive to COVID-19, this time at the Tamale Teaching Hospital. We are live there, and also at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, which is struggling to meet the oxygen needs for critically ill patients, with the country's case count at 5,515, with 424 killed by the virus. Also coming up, the election petition hearing at Supreme Court adjourned to Friday as John Mahama's team's request to inspect original Electoral Commission documents are dismissed. Highlights of the arguments made and what's to be expected next. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities Dignelu, affordable, safe sanitation. Do join us on DSTV 421, GoTV 144. We're streaming live on YouTube and on our social media handles. You can send us WhatsApp messages to 0540-109009. My name is Gifty Andopia. This is The Pulse. Please be my guest. Welcome to the show once again. This afternoon, we take a look at the country's COVID-19 cases, beginning from the northern regional capital, Tamale, where 184 cases have been recorded since the beginning of this year till date. JoyNews understands the Public Health Laboratory has recorded 41 new cases, which have yet to be added to the national figure. The region currently has 100 active cases and 80 recovered. 4 deaths have also been recorded. Let's go on Zoom and talk to our correspondent in the region, Martina Bugri. Hello, Martina. Martina, you're reporting you're reporting that an 8-month-old baby has tested positive for COVID-19 at the Tamale Teaching Hospital. Tell us more. How did we find this out?
What we understand is that the parents, both father and mother, came in sick, and so when they did the test, they got to know that they were positive, COVID positive. And so they had to do for the little girl too. And she also turned out positive. But because she hasn't got any conditionalities, she was managed from home and she's recovered. We are told that the samples were taken on the 19th of January and the results came in on the 23rd of January. As we speak now, she's fully recovered. She's gone for another test and it turned out negative.
What are doctors there saying?
Now, the issue has been people adhering to the protocols of wearing the face mask. It's a bit of a challenge in the metropolis, except institutions that mandate people to wear before you can enter, like the banks, most and some offices, most places where you are not mandated or they've not written it that it's mandatory that you must have a face mask, most people would not comply. If you go through the market, there's so much congestion, people are sitting very close to each other, no face mask. The washing stands for hand washing isn't there as well. And so their problem is people adhering. They believe that if people adhere, the numbers will reduce. But here's the case, most people are not listening to their plea.
Well, hang on for me, Martina. I'll come back to you. Let's talk to Dr. Hilarious Abiu. He's a Deputy Public Health Director for the Northern Region. Doc, thank you very much. Good afternoon. Hello, Doc. Can you hear me? All right, we'll bring you back, the Deputy Public Health Director there. But Martina, are people surprised? This must be the very first infant case, infant COVID-19 case in the region. That's correct, right?
No. Last year they recorded an infant case, and then this year too we told some 1 year old.
All right. I'm losing you, Martina.
What you know is that last year they recorded an infant case, and we are told that this year a 1 year old has tested as well, and then this 8-month-old baby.
Okay, so it's not so strange, but then nationwide there has been of concern because children were earlier thought not to, or earlier thought to be better at fighting this virus. Martina, hold on for me. Dr. Hilarious Abiu is joining us. Hello, Dr. Abiu. Good afternoon.
Hello, good afternoon.
So let's take a look. Let's start with the general case count. We know that the national figure gives us a particular figure, but we're also learning that there are new records that have not yet been transferred to national.
Yes, that's correct. The way we collect updates, facilities would have to report to the districts. The districts will report to the region, and then the region will do the final collation before it is forwarded to the national level. As it were, in the northern region, since the outbreak of the pandemic, we've been doing daily updates. Okay. Now, in order to be able to do that daily update, it will require that the regional level would have collated all that has happened in the day at the close of the working day, in order to be able to come up with the regionals coming in. But I would have to wait till the close of day 5 p.m. in order to know what has actually happened for the day today. So as I speak today, we haven't done the update for today. So much of what is in the public domain has to do with the update as at the close of day yesterday. So the additional 41 cases that you mentioned had to do with new results that are coming in that we need to validate in order to update the numbers.
And the possibility is that by the time the day ends, it may have gone up.
Yeah, that's very possible.
Right.
That's very possible, because currently there are 2 laboratories that are testing in the northern region.
Okay.
We have our public health reference lab and then the veterinary lab at Tamale in the Savoligu district. So these results are coming from the public health reference lab. And the likelihood is that we could get results from the Tamale side as well.
The national daily average, we're told, is we're hovering around 700. What is the regional average, if you do have that detail?
Right. So generally, in the from the beginning of the outbreak in 2020 to December, we were doing an average of about just 63 cases in a month, for the northern region. But if you look at the case count for January this year, the first week we recorded 19 cases. The second week we had 32. The third week 52, and the last week that just ended we had 81. So we see that consistently, and this is weekly average. Yeah. Compared with 63 per month in the previous year. So the numbers have more than quadrupled in terms of the numbers we are looking at.
The numbers have quadrupled,
and that clearly reflects, yes, because for all the 180 cases we are talking about, for 184 cases we are talking about, it's for this year. And I mean, January just ended. Okay, so you have moved from around an average of 63 cases per month to about 180 in a month. And the rate at which it is going, it's likely that the February figure would even exceed the January figures.
This afternoon we heard that an 8-month-old baby has been diagnosed. The last time we heard of such an incident was in Kumasi or the Ashanti region's Komfo-Anokye Teaching Hospital, where the doctors actually said that they were beginning to get worried and they were looking into why children were being infected. What is the story in the northern region given this latest infection of the 8-month-old?
Right. First of all, I think that from the very beginning, I think the observation is that the disease doesn't seem to have a major impact on children. It is not so much about whether children are getting infected or not.
Okay.
The problem is that in doing the COVID testing, especially at the beginning, you needed to take what you call the samples from the nose and throat. And that can be very traumatic for newborns and, you know, the very young in age. So a lot of the testing was not being done in that age group. And that would explain why perhaps we were not getting results or reported numbers in those cases, except where the index of suspicion is very high. For instance, you have a mother who is breastfeeding and is positive, picked up positive, the parents are all positive. Then at that point, you would want to go and test the baby. Okay. But routinely, you don't want to run out babies and start taking their samples. And that may explain why we didn't see numbers in terms of infections for these children. Okay. But what is also true is a majority of these young ones who get infected don't seem to have any major problems, the severe form of the disease, and that's the good news. Okay, so the 8-month-old we're talking about, I mean, it was uneventful, except for the fact that it was registered as positive. The results that came in today also recorded a 1-year-old boy. And again, the stories are essentially the same. Parents are positive, you want to check the child to see what the situation is, not necessarily because the children are ill. Wow.
Let's wrap up with the management of the cases there. We're told today that the Greater Accra Region Hospital is having issues, you know, supplying with supplies of oxygen for the patients who need it. What is your story in the northern region?
Right. I think that currently in the northern region, we don't have a lot of severe cases. Okay, so the majority of the numbers we are talking about are mild cases. So majority of these individuals are being managed from home. And so we only admit patients who are severely ill or moderately ill. So as we speak, as at yesterday, the number of people on admission that we had yesterday was around 6. But of course, from yesterday till now, the numbers, the count could have changed. And the other thing also is that the number of these cases that are on admissions are actually people who were ill in the hospital, and then their samples were taken for testing and came up positive, and then they are moved into these isolations. Okay, so generally we don't have congestion in our treatment centers because of the approach to managing the cases. That probably explains why our resources have not been overstretched as at this moment.
Okay. Hopefully it will stay that way for a long time. Dr. Rabiu, thank you very much for your time. Dr. Hilarious Rabiu is a Deputy Public Health Director for the Northern Region, sharing with us the story. So if you're just tuning in, an 8-month-old baby has tested positive, and as Dr. Rabiu says, another 1-year-old has also tested positive. Well, from the northern region, let's head to the Ashanti region, where some public sector offices are implementing a shift system to contain the spread of COVID-19 at the workplace. Nana Aljima visited the office of Efija Kwabre South District to assess measures that they have adopted to deal with the pandemic.
With the enforcement of the social distancing, hygiene and mask-wearing protocol.
President Akufo-Addo, in his last COVID-19 address, encouraged offices to run shift systems as a measure to contain the spread of the disease at the workplace.
All workplaces, public and private, must employ a shift system for workers, in addition to the use of virtual platforms for business or work.
This after the call Some public sector players have started cutting down the number of staff reporting to the office. The staff population of the Efija-Kwabre South District has been reduced to ensure social distancing protocols. The Client Service Department and the Office of the DC Secretary have fewer staff to ensure social distancing. Christian Edupoku is District Chief Executive.
Had it not been this, and you come to this assembly, I'm telling you, you come and see the population, so huge. But because of the shift system, we have decided to, work around things so that some of the staff members will come 3 days and others will come 2 days. And when the next week, those who went for 2 days will come 3, that sort of, and it's working perfectly.
Here, COVID-19 safety protocols of hand washing and wearing of nose mask are strictly enforced.
If you don't have the nose mask, you don't wash your hands and sanitize your hands, which, as you can see, we have it in front of the office, you can enter. You can enter, and we are adhering strictly to that. I'm very sure the coming weeks, you will see us in action, mounting barriers and making sure that everyone wears the nose mask.
Congestion is, however, a challenge in basic schools within the local area. Education managers are authorized to make arrangements to reduce congestion in classrooms, but little has been achieved. The DC explains measures being adopted.
We've built a lot of schools, and some of them are near completion. And due to the situation at hand, we cannot allow the contractors to finish everything before we allow the students to go in. So we are in talks with the contractors to allow the students to go in whilst they work at it. And some of them have agreed. And very soon, we will go to the schools, and those that have higher numbers, we will make sure that we divide the students into 2.
Meanwhile, the District Education Directorate has taken delivery of hygiene materials to support schools in upholding COVID-19 safety protocols. For JoyNews, Nana Ojima reporting.
And Nana Ojima is joining me for details of what is happening in the region generally. Nana, with the recent upsurge in cases and the awareness creation that seems to be going on, let's start with whether or not the attitude of people have changed when it comes to observing the protocols. Nana, do you hear me?
Wearing of nose mask.
I lost you from the beginning, so do start for me.
So I'm saying that with the adherence to the safety protocols, things are improving in the Ashanti region, especially with the wearing of nose masks. Everywhere you go, you find people in the nose masks. Before now, in public transports, there were few people who were wearing the nose masks, but now things are gradually improving, and also because the police have also been on guard. Last week we had some persons being arrested for breach of COVID-19 protocols, and also now there are a lot. The MTT is not only checking vehicle licensing and others; they are also checking nose masks and other COVID-19 observance of COVID-19 protocols. So things are gradually improving in the Ashanti region.
Well, that's good to hear. Let's look at the workplaces and the shift system. You've just done a report about this particular agency that is operating the shift system. Is this an isolated case, or are people really listening to the recommendation by the president?
So I've been doing my checks in the Ashanti region, and what I found is that it's difficult to identify these workplaces who are now have adopted these systems, shift system, to ensure social distancing in these areas. Most of the offices are yet to drop plans to suit what the president directed in his last address. But for Efija-Kwabre South District, the DC believes it's very important that they go back to the system they adopted earlier when cases of COVID-19 were very high in the country. So Afija-Kwabre district, South District is an isolated case, but from the information that I'm picking very soon, other agencies will join and also go by the directive of the president.
Nana, thank you. Is there anything else that our viewers ought to know at this point? Otherwise, we'll leave it there.
Yeah, what I would want to add is that now in public transport, aside the lack of social distancing in these public transports, most people are starting to observe the nose mask wearing protocols, and also sanitize. People are starting to use the sanitizers once again.
Well, that sounds good. Nana, thank you very much. Nana Jima there with our sister station in the Ashanti region. Let's come back to the capital. The Greater Accra Regional Hospital is struggling to contain the increasing number of critical and severe COVID-19 cases being reported at the facility. This is in spite of the recent expansion of the COVID-19 treatment center, which increased the bed facility at the place from 8 to 16. Now, JoyNews' Manuel Cranting, who visited the hospital today, reports the facility is actually battling to keep a steady supply of oxygen due to the huge demand by patients on admission. Although the main Ridge Hospital has a dedicated oxygen plant, supply has yet to be extended to the COVID-19 treatment center. Here is the medical director at the Greater Accra Regional Hospital, Dr. Emmanuel Srofenyo, who says the continuous delay in securing a dedicated oxygen supply is hampering the effective management of COVID-19 cases there.
Had to expand it to 16-bed ICU currently. That's COVID ICU currently. And as we are talking now, all these 16-bed ICU beds are occupied. And one of the critical needs of patients like this is oxygen support. So they have to depend on high volumes of oxygen. As the technical people have said earlier on, very critically ill patients need about 15 liters of oxygen a day, a minute. So you can imagine that every minute they need about 15 liters. So that means that in 3 minutes, in 4 minutes, they need about 16 liters of oxygen, So this is oxygen. Before, when we buy oxygen about 25,000, it lasted for some time. And now, 2 to 3 days is finished because some of the patients have become oxygen dependent and they are consuming high volumes of oxygen. So we have gotten to a situation where we are spending a large part of our internally generated resource on purchasing this oxygen. So we've now realized that our oxygen plant, we have a plant, so the oxygen plant can be connected to the ICU block so that instead of buying oxygen in cylinders, we can just connect that plant to the block and have free flow of oxygen in 24 hours. The other danger in relying on oxygen cylinders is that when you have a situation where there is a shortage, maybe cylinder supply finishes before you have to install. If you have patients who are critically ill, in that changeover period, you may lose a patient. And so when we have a situation of continuous supply, it's better than a situation of having to rely on oxygen cylinders. And so that is why we've done the technical analysis, and we are convinced that the way to go is to connect our oxygen plant to that block. We do have estimates in terms of the components, like there are several components of the work that should be done, and then there is the issue of the pipes, and then there is the issue of the manifold systems that will be connected, and so on and so forth. So that's how the work, and then the workmanship. So we have all these. It comes to a little under 400,000. We are also going to write to our superiors on this, but then again, we know the government has supported us a lot. Some of the equipment there were equipment that was given to us by the government. Any support from the private sector will be welcomed.
Very loud communication.
Yeah.
There's needed the ICU bed stock up to it almost always in this community. Does this situation in any way hamper the efficiency in operating that way?
Not at all. What it causes is huge resource expenditure. Huge resource expenditure. So if we are able to get a direct connection, then the hospital will save a lot of money. So the efficiency of the place is guaranteed, provided we continue to supply the oxygen cylinders in good time, which is what we are doing currently. But we have a situation where
possibilities of momentary,
it's always present. So it takes hard work to make sure that you are looking at the gauge, and when it's coming down, you place the order. So when you have a situation where the suppliers are not unable to supply in good time, then you experience shortage. So the factors are many. You get me?
That's the medical director, Dr. Strofenyo, there. He also says that the hospital is set to begin testing of samples at the facility.
Now, another thing that also compromises the bed space is delay in getting results. But government has responded to this. So as we are here now, government has given us a machine that can also test for the COVID. So that being the case, so we will be able, when the patients arrive to our emergency, and we have an algorithm that we use to determine whether it's a suspected case or not. So when the patient arrives at the emergency, and we take the patient through the algorithm, and we deem the case as a suspected case, we'll do the test there and then, and within few hours, we'll have the results, and then we know where the patient should be placed. This is going to reduce the need for holding, because currently we keep patients on the ward as holding for a long number of hours, and this situation is going to stop once we start operationalizing the machine. The machine has been installed, so we are going to start barely by tomorrow. We'll start doing our own internal testing for the sick patients. When they come to the emergency, we will test them early enough, and so we'll have a situation where we will not need a huge space for holding up cases. Yeah.
Good to know that. So it means that
we don't test ourselves. We take the samples and have to send to Noguchi or Kolebu Teaching Hospital testing lab before we know the results. So that is what is happening. There is a delay. Yes, now we are going to have a testing lab, and government, this device, the equipment came from government. Government has supplied us with the equipment through the Ghana Health Service. We have finished installing it, and so we've done the necessary testing. We've tested some few cases, and the machine has performed well, and so we are going to now start testing of the emergencies. We'll focus on the emergencies that arrive at our emergency departments.
Well, as the nation awaits the arrival of a vaccine in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, it may not just be the vaccine, but the vaccination, as Ghanaians are to brace up for their bodies to change forever in the process of vaccination. That's according to the Director General of the Ghana Standards Authority, Professor Alex Dodu, who has been speaking to me earlier on Joy Prime, on the Prime Morning Show. Professor Dodu said the complex nature of vaccine is the reason a carefully thought out preparation is required.
We normally tend to look at vaccines, when people get disease from viruses or bacteria, the question to ask is, how do you protect yourself? Traditionally, you get a disease, if you don't die, your body remembers the disease. And next time you get a disease, your body fights it. We call it natural protection, natural immunity. So you go to war. If you don't die, you can go to war again and win. However, that is inefficient because a lot of people can die. So scientists take a bit of the thing causing the problem, the virus or the bacteria, give it to you so that you get small of the disease, very, very minor. And then your body learns to fight against the disease on its own. And then next time you get a disease, your body will fight it naturally. That is the whole concept of vaccination. And it gets emotional because you give vaccines to people who are healthy, so that they don't get sick. And for vaccines, typically, you also add something to, quote unquote, make it hotter. We call them adjuvants. You add something to, the vaccine is a small amount of protein, and you don't want to give too much. So you add some other ingredients, call them, you mix it, you got the fish, but you need to add some salt and pepper too, to make the soup nice. And that makes it hotter, and we say more reactive, more reactogenic. So it helps you get the reactions quickly without getting too much of the bad part of the vaccine, as in the antigen or what is causing the disease.
Okay.
Now, how do we know? Believe it or not, you give a dose and you look at the response. So you are looking at the most effective dose, which will give you the biggest response, so that you don't give an overdose. So even with vaccines, in preparing it, you do that. Secondly, you notice that vaccine administration is interesting, because you give a little bit, and then sometimes you wait for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 13 weeks, and you give the second one. So you give small for the body to start warming up.
Okay.
Then you give a bigger one for the body to know that, yes, now I'm there.
I see.
So it's all planned and it's rolled out. But believe you me, vaccines are the most careful thing we take about when we prepare them. Because once a vaccine goes into your body, it changes your body forever.
Wow.
Yep. And because you give vaccines to people who are healthy, your level of risk, or rather your preparation to prevent problems, should be higher. Normal medicines like paracetamol is given to you when you are sick. So you take it and you get well. With vaccine, you are well and you don't want to get sick, and you take it. So you get confused. Why should I take something when I'm well and it gives me rashes or headache? You know, it's difficult to accept.
Okay.
But it's like buying insurance. With vaccination, you are buying insurance to protect against future disease and to keep you safe. There's no vaccine on earth which doesn't have side effects. The question is, how big is the side effect, and is it acceptable for what you are protecting?
And perhaps, how does it even compare to what you're protecting the person against?
So when we started looking at safety to formalize it, what we said was that the benefits should always be bigger than the risks. The public needs to know that vaccines represent something that has proven to work and be beneficial. Because of vaccines, now you don't have smallpox. Because of vaccination, measles have all but disappeared.
But he also says you should be aware of the side effects. So he says government must endeavor to develop a communication plan which will dispel the misconceptions about vaccinations.
How do you convince people to take vaccines? When there's no disease, nobody wants to take vaccine. But when there's a disease, they come. So there is community hesitancy. In vaccination, there's a key thing called trust. You know, the public all over the world feel like, look, governments don't give us everything. Then all of a sudden, something free. Conspiracy theories, they abound everywhere. Europe, America, Ghana. In our own population, the challenge we have is, how do you communicate uncertainty? And let me say it slowly. How do you communicate uncertainty? There's a lot we know about vaccines and COVID vaccines. There's a lot we do not know. So it's a communication which requires trust both ways, but a lot of transparency. What I love is the way His Excellency the President gave his speech on Sunday. He said we would use vaccines which have been approved by a regulator, that's the FDA. What goes into it is a lot of discussion with all scientists in Ghana who have something to offer and who are invited. Then he did make the point that we'll make sure we have the systems to monitor those vaccines. And our belief is that, just like we have done in other areas, the reportage of adverse events, or what we call pharmacovigilance or vaccine pharmacovigilance, will be transparent and open, where you update the public regularly on what is happening. Now the public needs to be made to believe that the fact that you take a vaccine doesn't make you superhuman.
So which category of people will be exempt from this vaccination?
There's no information that it is harmful in pregnant women. However, we just don't know. So there is always what you don't know, and the guidance is, don't take it if you are pregnant, unless you have a condition where if you get a disease, it gets complicated.
So as we speak now, when should the vaccinations start, pregnant women will not be a part of those who will be vaccinated?
Rule of thumb, you don't want to worry the next generation. You usually will not give anything to a pregnant woman unless the benefits are more than the risk. So it's very unlikely for pregnant women to be among the people who will be vaccinated unless they have very severe underlying conditions, in which case the benefits to them may far outweigh the risk.
If that's the case, how soon will we know whether or not it will be okay for pregnant women to take it, or is that indefinite? Excluding them, is excluding them indefinite?
It will take a long time, purely because what you end up doing is that you find a woman who took the vaccine, 6 months down the line, she realized, oh, I was pregnant when I took it. You look at the outcomes and nothing happened to her or the baby. As the data increases, you feel more confident. Because really with pregnancy, the effect on both the mother and the unborn child are key considerations before you give them anything. Even paracetamol in pregnancy is only given when you think the benefit is way better than the risk.
Wow. As Professor Dodo there speaking to me earlier on the Prime Morning Show. Now, public health physician Dr. Mary Amwako Coleman is making a strong case for employees who contract COVID-19 in the line of duty. She wants employers to offer their employees the best of supports needed in times like these. The Ghana Health Service has identified workplaces as hotspots for the spread of the virus. Speaking on PM Express with Aisha Ibrahim, Dr. Coleman explained that employers must help manage the psychological effects of COVID-19 among employees.
These workers are now faced with perhaps meeting their targets as it is in this current situation without the conditions that existed before. And so what measures are put in place to make sure that they are supported to be able to meet these targets without the pressure on them is very important. Now they are thinking about how to keep themselves safe, how to keep their families safe, and they are thinking about how to meet their job targets. And it's very important that we have a system in place that thinks about that and makes resources available to them. Again, people are being affected by COVID, and that's a reality as long as they are coming from the population. What support is there for them in the workplace so that they don't feel like we got ourselves into this situation and we are on our own? We must make sure that in the workplace, people who get COVID are not stigmatized. And this is very important. So if I get COVID in the workplace, who should be told in the workplace? We should have a system where, yes, as a matter of responsibility and because of the public health nature of this COVID, people need to be informed because your close contact may have been affected. But the communication about this should be well managed in such a way that the person feels like nobody is pointing fingers at them and they can come back to their folk and work when they are well without any problems.
Right, let's move from Ghana. We go to Europe now to check on the coronavirus situation there. Today, we're focusing on Portugal and Germany's vaccination campaign, even as we wait here in Ghana for receipt of our own vaccine. Well, for more, Anja Koch is joining me from Berlin. And Anja, the number of infections in Germany is going down, while a rather sharp upsurge is being recorded in Portugal. Do give us some details.
Yeah, the infection rate in Portugal indeed started to soar in the beginning of January. Since then, the number of active cases has gone up by more than 240%. There are basically two main reasons to that. The first is that there was a relaxation of social distancing rules during Christmas. People traveled, people visited their families. And the second reason basically is the Portuguese authorities said that the new strains of the virus, the more infectious strains, are already widespread in Portugal. Now, the situation there looks like this. The hospitals are overflowing. The health ministry said that over the past weekend, there were only 7 free ICU beds left for the whole country. And the government has now asked for help. Germany, for example, has offered that kind of help. Germany said they would send ventilators, among other things. Now, here in Germany, the numbers of new infections are actually going down. Active cases have dropped by around 40% since December. But having said that, there's also growing concern in Germany about the new strains of the virus. The German government just recently installed a travel ban for people coming from those countries where the new strains are already widespread.
Here in Ghana, we are told to respect the vaccines by March, but in Germany, you have already started vaccinating people at least about a month ago, and the vaccination campaign has been met with rather increasing criticism. Why is that, and how is the government reacting to this?
Well, especially elder people are complaining that the process to actually get an appointment is much too complicated. But also young Germans feel that the vaccination campaign is going too slow, and indeed manufacturers have fallen behind on deliveries. When we compare the numbers, when you see Germany has so far managed to vaccinate around 2.4% of its population. When you compare that to other countries, to the UK, for example, they have already managed to vaccinate around almost 14% of the population. So this week, the German government apparently felt the need to reassure Germans that they have understood the criticism. So the government organized at the beginning of the week a so-called vaccination summit, a meeting between Chancellor Merkel, regional leaders, and representatives of the pharmaceutical companies.
Well, vaccination summit sounds like something we might need here in Ghana as we wait for hours. But what was the outcome of this particular meeting, Anya?
Well, I think the most important outcome, at least for Germans here, was that Angela Merkel repeated her promise that everyone would be offered a vaccination by the end of the summer. That would mean by September 21st. That date is becoming more and more important for Germans. And she also said that she expected more deliveries by BioNTech. BioNTech is expected to deliver 75 million additional doses to the EU in the second quarter. But Merkel also stressed that in that first quarter of the year until March, there will be a shortage of vaccine that makes a quick end of Germany's lockdown very unlikely.
Anya, thank you very much for those updates there. Anya Koch is with our partners DW in Berlin, bringing us up to speed on what is happening. There were some very valuable lessons we can learn from there, that the criticism or the response, the reaction from the people are responded to quickly and in time by authorities. Do stay with us here on The Pulse. We'll be returning shortly to tell you about a rather sad story, an accident that has claimed at least 20 people. Pretty scary. Do stay with us. You're welcome back. At least 20 people are dead after a bus in which they were traveling collided with another on the Tamale Kintampo Road. About 45 others are said to have sustained various degrees of injuries in a head-on collision involving two buses at Sarichekua, a farming community near Fufoso in the Savannah region. All bodies, including the drivers from both vehicles, 12 males and 4 females, including a child, have been deposited at the Bupe Polyclinic mortuary. Isaac Nonya is our correspondent on the ground. He's joining me with more. Hello, Isaac. Isaac, what more have you been able to gather about this accident?
Yes, the latest on the ground from the Bupe Polyclinic is that a feeding mother and her child condition is getting bad, and they have to refer them to the Tamale Teaching Hospital for tertiary medical attention. As of those who are currently at the Bupe Holistic Medicare, we are told 5 additional people who were admitted earlier and I also plan to also move them to join their colleagues at the Tamale Teaching Hospital because their cases are becoming unbearable for them to be able to contain.
What has the police been saying? Do they have an idea what actually happened?
Yes, the police PRO, Inspector Owusu Ajokum, attributed the accident to a fatigue, a situation he thinks is regrettable to the extent that transport owners or unions should have followed the footsteps of that of the State Transport Union Corporation, STC, where they will have two drivers. In the situation where one is tired, he's being substituted by the second person, and this will ease safe traveling to wherever they are going. But in the case of the private transports, you have a single driver. In the case of Zebula, a driver would drive this car from Zebula alone up to Kumasi or Accra, and then the vice versa. So in the situation where he or she is tired, he expected the tollways to happen. So he's calling on traffic union, the car owners, to be able to get the double system drivers, as he said, so that when they're going, there will be a point that a driver will rest and the other one take over to be able to have a smooth sailing to wherever they are going. Until that is done, he said the police will have to take a second look with their partners to make sure they enforce this particular thing. That will go a long way to help everybody on the road. Now, he was also pointing at the fact that just 2 weeks ago, a similar incident happened where 6 passengers lost their life on the same stretch of road in between Bupe and Tamale. And this has been the second time within 2 weeks. The police says the time has come for them to act with their partners to make sure that they protect travelers and then passersby on the roads.
The eyewitnesses who were there, what else do they say? I mean, what did they see?
Yes, this woman, Amina said she was on board the car from Kumasi going to Garu. But they realized, according to her own testimony, she thinks the driver was dozing, and for that, the car veered off halfway from the road. So while it was still on the road, part of it outside the road, that of the one from Zebula de Yutong, it was like that driver too didn't see earlier, or he too was dozing. Then he collided with the first car that veered a bit away from the road, and that resulted in an accident. To her, she thinks that the two drivers were dozing.
Wow. Well, as we speak now, I mean, can you give us an idea what the accident scene looks like? Has it been cleared? Is traffic moving?
The traffic is moving, but it's slow because what the Ghana personnel from the Ghana National Fire did, which is the Yoma job, they were able to cut open and remove and rescue some of the human beings who are now we call dead bodies. But we are told there were some that they were investigating that they will still be under a place that they will not have the instrument to be able to reach, to be able to find out whether there were still bodies, whether able or dead, still trapped there. So the cars that are coming from Kumasi in particular, the majority are not having a sail way. There's a little bit of traffic between the Bupe toll booth and the Bupe township due to what is happening at the accident scene. We are being told that between now and 4 p.m., the road will be cleared and vehicular movement will be smooth and back to normal.
Thank you very much, Isaac. Hopefully we will be able to follow up on these people and find out who the people are, the people involved in this accident, so that they don't remain statistics. But that is why I'm raising, Isaac, thank you. I'm raising Alexander Ayata, the Regional Road Safety Director for the Northern and Savannah region, who was at the scene earlier. Ms. Ayata, thank you for your time. What did you see when you went there?
Hello?
Yes, Ms. Ayata, I hear you. What did you see when you went there at the scene of the accident?
Good afternoon. Yes, as I got there, everything has been cleared, and in fact, the injury has been taken them to various hospitals and clinics. Then, of course, CTE for those of them who were seriously injured. And when I reached there, everything was okay, except that, of course, if you see the nature of the accident, it would really ring a bell that, of course, people have died. And what I have gathered so far, when I got there, only some few people were there to pick their luggage, and then about 7 kids were waiting to hear from their parents. And thank God, some of them had their relatives who were there to assist them. And as I visited the place and proceeded to the police station, the fire service, they did a good job. They were called almost around 12:45 a.m., but I believe that the accident occurred almost after 12:30 thereabouts. So when they reached there, they were able to do a good job. In fact, the unfortunate thing is that immediately they rescued those who were trapped, and the fact that, of course, at the end of the day, 16 died at the spot, and later on, 1 died at TTH. And out of the number 60, from what I have been given videos, records, and pictures, 60 injuries. And the difficulty is that they were unable to really get each of the numbers of the various cars. And let me indicate that AC 169920 was from Kumasi going to Garu. That collided with GT 16 going from Zebila to Kumasi. They are communities, and I can say they are almost closer, where Garu and Zebila in Upper East, they are very close. And I tell you, of course, the situation isn't good at all.
Yeah. Let me just clarify. Let me just clarify this. Initially, what we heard was that 45 people have been injured. Did you just say that that number has changed from 45 to 50?
Yes, because sometimes when the people who do not have the facts try to reach out to the media, they give numbers that, of course, I got them myself, and I contacted the fire service regional commander, who were the first people to be contacted, and they got there, they did the rescue, they did all that was needed. So I got exactly, and of course, the police also take their information from them as well. So there are 60. And what I'm told is that when they counted all of them for the 2 vehicles, there were 108 people. And out of that, 16 died on the spot, and later on, 1 died. So 17 were killed. Then 60 injuries. This is what I got. But of course, I read somewhere else that the people were saying 45. People even said 70 people died. So let's get this one right. And of course, I know eventually we will go there to investigate. A team will be sent to do the investigation. Then we'll confirm everything for you.
When is that investigation happening?
Sooner or later, because it has just occurred. So we will have to constitute a team that will be led by the National Safety Authority, so that we will do that. But let me make a remark here.
One would have thought that, just a quick follow-up, one would have thought that you'd already have such a team to follow up on such incidents when they occur.
It will happen. And let me indicate that I just had a call from the MP for Zebila, the Member of Parliament, to ascertain the situation. And let me say that for almost 4 years now, the raw cause of accident that occurred there is from Upper East region. And frankly, it's also from the same area, either Garu or Zebila. And the fact is that because of the timing and whenever they are tired, what we've seen is that the one coming from Kumasi fell asleep, according to one of the victims. And because of that, of course, the collision occurred. And for almost 4 years, our study on that particular place indicated that accidents occur, particularly just for those drivers from Upper East. And the fact that when they are traveling in, instead of them to, at least for every 4 hours of drive, they must stop and rest for 30 minutes. It is not done. And I think
so
that
what
we
is
need to look at it seriously.
What is your outfits, the road safety outfits, doing about this problem that you have clearly outlined?
Yes, we have always been to the road stations. We have had meetings, stakeholder meetings. We spoke to them that they must also have 2 drivers, so that at least when one is tired, the other can take over.
And is that working? Is this intervention working?
It is not. And I think that we need to enforce the law. The law must be applied strictly so that we can save human lives. Of course, we need to wake up. Just like all of us are fighting against COVID-19, we must all come on board. I am happy the MP for the area had to call me, and we're looking at this seriously. I want to say that, of course, sometimes these drivers must be checked. The moment they even stop for a rest, they decide to take certain things to keep them up. And I think that is wrong. They don't even rest for 30 minutes. And we need to enforce that law so that every 4 hours of driving, you must please rest for 30 minutes. It's mandatory.
Right.
And all of us have to ensure this so that together we can arrive alive.
Ms. Ayata, we will talk to you again after the investigation. We're very much looking forward to that. Often we're told that, investigations are ongoing and we don't get to hear anything subsequently. But I'll take you on your word for that.
you can trust me. I think that we'll do this one so that at least we don't continue to see all these acts of indiscipline on our highways.
Very well, sir. When the investigation is done, we certainly will be there to share the information with the rest of the world. Thank you very much. Alex Ayata, the Ashanti Region Director of the National Road Safety Authority. May the souls of those who have died rest in peace. He actually represents both the northern and Savannah region. You know that region essentially has been split. So talking to us that he was actually on the scene and telling us what he saw. 16 people died on the spot. One more person died later, so 17 in all. Now 50 people are injured and they are being treated at the hospital. Let me tell you this, over 2,500 people were killed through road traffic accident in Ghana last year alone. Latest statistics from the Police Motor Traffic and Transport Directorate suggest this is unprecedented. Shockingly, 1,056 of these deaths were from motorcycles. Superintendent Dr. Samuel Sasumensa is the Director of Operations for the MTTD.
The number of accident cases that were reported to the police, and for that matter, the MTTD is 14,886, and that's 15,517 got injured, and the total number of those who were killed were 2,589. But when you compare it to the previous year, what we find out is that the accident rate, everything is increasing. So it's as an issue we have to deal with, and we have to deal with it professionally. So that's why we've instituted many measures to deal with the canker.
But the National Road Safety Authority is very worried about this sharp rise in spite of the ongoing nationwide Arrive Alive campaign. Here is the Director of Planning and Programs for the authority, David Osafwa-Donting, who tells JoyNews they will not be discouraged.
As I speak to you now, at the end of 2020, last year, we have recorded 2,500 deaths. Unprecedented. It's never happened in Ghana. In the past 2 decades, all our statistics, all our deaths have been less than around 2,000, hovering around 2,000, 1,800, and sometimes 2,100 or 2,200. Currently, as I speak to you, the latest is that we have recorded 2,500 deaths. This, I said, is unprecedented and it's unacceptable. And that is how come we are now using the various platforms, including multimedia, to scale up our campaign. This time around, we're saying Arrive Alive, because it is important for people to arrive alive. The major objective, the main objective of anybody who comes from home to hit the road to wherever you're going in terms of destination is that you must get there safely. And that is why we say we should arrive alive. And so Arrive Alive has come to stay. We are going to talk about Arrive Alive for the next decade, which means that our interest now, just not only on the reduction as you have seen over the past decade or so, but reduction in numbers to the desired levels, where we say the barest minimum. And that is why the National Road Safety Authority has now been set up. Our major objective is to reduce the deaths and injuries on our road to the barest minimum.
All right, from now, some residents of Kasoa are calling for the relocation of the Weja Kasoa toll booth as they raise concerns about the many productive hours wasted in long queues just to pay 50 pesos and sometimes 1 cedi tolls. They contend that relocation of the toll booth or its automation will help resolve the challenge. Maxwell Agbagba with more in this report.
I'm standing very close to the Weja Kasoa toll booth. Usually during the day, during the morning rush hour, the traffic situation here is on the eastbound stretch heading to the Central Business District and its environs. During the evening rush hour also, the traffic gets on the westbound section of the road. Well, a lot of residents here and commuters have been complaining about the situation. I've been speaking to Bashir Angote, who is the chairman of the Tuba Taxi Drivers Association.
The toll booth have been there for a very long time, and it's high time they have to move the toll booth from the position it is now to another location. Otherwise, the traffic will be still there.
Okay.
Yeah, it's the toll booth, of course, because you see, this road is the main road from Central Region to Greater Accra. And a lot of residents on the Central Region used to work at Accra. So during the morning time like this, at least from 5 a.m. up to 10 a.m., the road is very, very busy. And the traffic is so much that you can't contain. There's nowhere to pass unless you manage and pass through. So it is the toll booth that is slowing down the cars, that is causing the traffic. We really need help, especially we need policemen at the junction, those who manage the traffic and those who can take care of the pedestrian, because you can see a lot of people used to cross the road from the right to the left side, and they need help.
Well, many of the residents we've been interacting with here tell us the traffic situation gets dire to the extent that some motorists and car owners are compelled to leave their cars here and join public transport to their various workplaces.
I think if they remove it will, the traffic will be low. Yeah, because when the car is coming, that place is no good. Even where the car will pass, and that place is no good. So the car will slow down before the car will enter the toll booth for them to pay and then go. So when they remove the toll booth, the traffic will be low for us so that you can go. This area, sometimes you can stay there around maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour before you can go. Yeah.
The traffic situation is very bad. Now you can see that Kasoa first, the development is, let me say, is low, but now people are moving in and out, and it make more traffic around. So what I suggest maybe to bring the traffic down is the toll. If they can do some expansion, I think it will help.
The only people who are unperturbed about the bumper-to-bumper traffic situation are the sellers here. They say this is their source of livelihood. They cash in on the traffic situation here and do not want authorities to relocate the toll booths.
It will be a huge blow if we are evicted. There are many SHS graduates here who are doing business to raise money to further their education.
Maxwell Agbagba with that report. Now, the Inspector General of Police has deployed armed men from the counter-terrorism and formed police units to Waliwali in the West Mamprusi municipality of the Northeast region in response to the increasing spate of armed robbery attacks on the Tamale-Bolgatanga highway. The 160-kilometer stretch of the N10 highway in the north has been prone to robbery attacks with more than 7 recorded cases already, with 3 travelers killed and an estimate of about 600,000 cedis robbed in the attacks. Correspondent Eliasu Tanko, however, reports that some truck drivers traveling on the highway still feel anxious over the development and would rather police escorts are assigned to their vehicles to ensure safe passage on the route.
Route in Ghana that begins at Kumasi and runs north to Burkina Faso, spanning a distance of 578 kilometers. At Tamale, the N10 intersect with the N9 and also intersect with the M11 at Bolgatanga, making it one of the most important economical connections to Burkina Faso and other Sahelian countries, including Niger and Mali. But over the years, robbery attacks have been prevalent, especially on the Tamale-Bolga section of the highway in the jurisdiction of the West Mamprusi municipality of the Northeast region, where armed bandits are using sophisticated tactics to attack, sometimes kill, before robbing mostly ECOWAS travelers and vehicles. Last year, statistics showed nearly over 20 robbery attacks were reported in various parts of the municipality, compelling the government to send in a military reinforcement in December to counter and dislodge the robbers from the highway. However, the situation remains as more than 7 robbery attacks have been reported already since the beginning of this year, with about 3 killed and over 600,000 robbed so far. The situation came to a head last week following the attack and killing of a truck driver and other passengers who were said to be traveling from Kumasi to purchase tomatoes from Burkina Faso. The Association of Tomatoes Traders and Transporters in Kumasi staged a joint protest with some truck drivers against the attack, threatening to suspend operations on the highway and demanded security protection for their members using the highway. At Wale Wale, some of the angry tomato truck drivers on their way to Burkina Faso spoke to JoyNews.
Last week, for power back. Police were able to do a escort, Bibia, Omudianas, 5 cities. No matter even though you cannot become one some police phone, a police phone is no more boy home. And I 4 days or 5 days, she showed up on you to Obama's baby or Diana, opposing from what does it to Massey? Very young Kwama 72. Baby, I have patrol or Massey Beria, when you patrol. And I'm told for any time any day, and Opera and Robert attacking. Albino, the Jensen baby by 2 minimum and baby by Namodia. A bear 1 month in Temuni. The Casma Kuma 6 and I'm Robert Robuya. And not that day, Yaba Fufu Subaria, Damango Junction. Police regional being a look at say, I'm Robert Naquamuke. Nina is obedient was open left. In the end, drop on. Okati Libanza and a wound through in Toscana, I'm Robert Naquamuke. It is a by say, you say a Ghana for if it's a bus now, Sika, they come. A switch about Sika as your bomb mobile. Young now say a Ghana for the
Though authorities are tight-lipped on details of the operations of the reinforcement team, but senior police commanders in the region who have been speaking to JoyNews explain the sole mandate of the anti-robbery squad is to counter robbery and other illicit operations on the highway. Elias Tutanko reporting for JoyNews.
You're still watching The Pulse with me, Gifty and Opia. We're going to take a very quick break. When we return, we'll take you to Parliament. What happened there today was some members, although haven't tested positive for COVID-19, apparently are still attending to parliamentary duties and entering the chamber. We'll get more of that story. We'll also give you the update from the Supreme Court hearing today. Do stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back. Many thanks for staying with us. Some members of Parliament, although have tested positive for COVID-19, are still attending to Parliament and entering the chamber. That's according to the First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Joseph Osei-Usu. Speaking on the floor of the House on Wednesday, the Bekwai MP noted that the Speaker is directing that those MPs desist from entering the chamber. The First Deputy Speaker also noted that more than 50 MPs have still not subjected themselves to the COVID-19 test. Last week, Speaker Alban Bagwin threatened that if the MPs do not avail themselves to be tested, he will mention their names. This threat is yet to be carried through. Kweku Asante is joining me live from Parliament. Kweku, this is really serious. How did it even come up on the floor in the first place?
Right, so the Speaker had admitted some statements, and the statements were being read. But just as those statements and the debates were going on, the First Deputy Speaker, Joseph Osei-Usu, just cut in and said that the Speaker had asked him to do this very important and urgent announcement that all members of Parliament who have not subjected themselves yet to the test that the House has been undertaking should please do so before 4 p.m. And around that time, it was not 4 p.m. yet when he made that announcement. He was expecting that members should do that. And then he went on to add that they are aware that although some members who have already taken the test have tested positive, they are still attending to Parliament and are still coming into the chamber. And so the leadership is warning them to desist from doing so, and that if they continue to do so, they will mention their name. Just a brief background to this. 2 weeks ago, the House decided that all members and staff, as well as even some press corps members, were to be undertaking the COVID-19 test to ensure that the House is safe for everybody to be coming in to do public business. And last week, the Speaker announced that close to 60 members of the House are still not undertaking the test, and he was urging them to kindly do so, and that if they did not, this week he was going to mention the names of those MPs who are still not undertaking the test. This is the second day of sitting for this week. The names have still not been mentioned, and this new one is coming in that some members have tested positive and are still coming in, and over 50 members have still not taken the test.
I mean, that's pretty outrageous that members of Parliament have tested positive and know about it and are still coming to Parliament to infect other people and the leadership of Parliament. I mean, I'm wondering, did they give an indication which side of the House, for example, that these people are, those who have been infected and are still coming to the House are sitting in? Did they, for example, ask the marshals to prevent them from coming in? Did anything like this happen? No?
No, and that is a bit surprising bit of all this. And from the indication and from the way the conversation we had, you get the understanding that maybe those who have tested positive are coming from both sides of the aisle. And what is shocking is if this number of people have tested positive and the House knows, then it should prevent them or it should ask them to self-isolate and not even enter the premises of Parliament itself. But no such decision has been taken. Members are coming in, and the only thing leadership is doing right now is to issue threats and say that if you don't either go and test, or if you've tested positive and you don't stop coming into the chamber, would mention your name. That was a bit surprising. Okay. But also a point that was raised by the minority chief whip, Honorable Munta Kambarak, to the extent that the whips on both sides of the House do not have the names of those who have tested positive. And the confidentiality issues surrounding the COVID test means that only members who have tested positive or the leadership, the speakership will be told that this number of people have tested positive. And so he is saying that the names of members who have tested positives on each side should be given to the whips of each side so that they will prevent them from coming into the chamber, and also as well warn other members, their colleagues, from staying away from them. And so it's just warnings and threats.
Right. And Kweku, let's just figure out, Kweku, you earlier indicated that the Speaker had given them up to 4 p.m. I'm checking with my time and it's just 18 past 4 right now. Perhaps this is the time that the threat will be carried through.
Yeah, this was in relation to the 15 plus members who have still not taken their test. Right. And so he was saying that they should please do so. And when he said that, a few people got out of the chamber. But of course, you cannot tell if these are the people, because if you come to Parliament all the time, you see that whilst business goes on, members of Parliament keep going up and about. And so it is not an indication that those who got up and left the chamber are those who have still not undertaken their test. But when it goes to the substantive issue of those who have tested positive, it's left to be seen what will be done. That if people have tested positive and they are still attending to the House, then something more concrete should be done than simply warning that if these members do not stop coming into the chamber, then their names will be mentioned. I mean, this happened
let's find out
when COVID was at its height in Ghana.
What else?
According to then Speaker of Parliament, Michael Quay, had tested positive, but we're still coming in, and we were just threats, we mentioned your name, and nothing was done. So it's left to be seen what concrete actions will be taken. Of the House
what else happened on the floor of the House today?
Right, so in the House today, so far there's not so much on the agenda, but some statements that were admitted by the Speaker have been read. There was one by Kofi Adam on cocoa, the cocoa affairs in the country, and according to him, what his indication he's gotten from his constituency is that some LBCs, that is large buying companies, have still not been paid by the Ghana Cocoa Board to be able to buy cocoas. And so he was bringing this to the attention of Parliament and to government to expedite the process. But just then, there was a sharp rebuttal from MT for Efutu and Deputy Majority Leader Honorable Alexander Finyo-Markins, the fact that that was not true, and that the indication he has is that all LBCs have been paid. But it became a subject of partisan debate from both sides, while members of the NPP majority said that the Cocoa Board had paid the money. Those on the NDC side insisted that some LBCs, the large buying companies, have still not been paid. So there's not so much that has been said here. We are expecting that they will go into this other substantive business of the House later on.
Kwaku, thank you very much for that update. Kwaku Asante, they're coming to us live from Parliament. Away from Parliament, let's head to the Supreme Court. Well, today, the court in a unanimous decision turned down a request by the 2020 NDC presidential candidate John Dramani Mahama to be allowed to inspect documents in the custody of the Electoral Commission. These are documents relied upon by the EC to announce the result of the presidential elections. Lead counsel for Mr. Mahama, Chachu Chikata, had argued that access to the document, including the original constituency presidential coalition form and the summary sheets, will ensure a fair determination of the case.
An application under this order for production of a document for inspection or to the court, privilege from the production is claimed or objection is made to the production on any other ground, the court may inspect the document to decide whether the claim or objection is justified. I don't believe that privilege is an issue here.
Referring to one?
Yes. And one, we have addressed you on the necessity. And we have addressed you by referring even simply to the attachment to Exhibit D, which has been the basis of a lot of cross-examination here and the basis of a lot of explanation from counsel. But that Exhibit D itself, in our respectful submission, shows the necessity for knowing what is the original document on the basis of which we must choose one or the other. What is the original document? That is my submission. In relation to PW1, and in our respectful submission, those questions are completely irrelevant to the issues that have to be dealt with. Because the question whether he has documents or
My lords, if I may be heard on this. My lords, I think counsel should argue the application before he... Yes, but the question had nothing to do with what Justice Appa said.
Let me answer myself.
No.
Please. Mr. Chikata, please, that is your opinion. So keep it to yourself.
Yeah,
whether the questions I asked were irrelevant or not, that is your opinion.
Yeah, but my lord, I need to explain why I'm saying they're irrelevant, so that I can fully answer the question. Because the question relates to the same position that your lordship took. The question relates to that. So I need to be heard on why I say that they're irrelevant. Because I do not say that lightly. I do not say that lightly. I do not say that lightly. The questions are irrelevant because we have brought a petition here on the grounds of a declaration that was made purportedly about elections held on the 7th of December. The declaration stated a figure. We all heard it, 14,300 and 400 and all that. We all heard it. That declaration to this day is the only declaration that has been made. Johnson Asiedu Nketia is not the returning officer of the election of 7th December.
Counsel for John Mahama, the lead counsel for John Mahama, Chachu Chikata, lead counsel for the Electoral Commission, Justin Amenuvo, prayed the court to dismiss the application, saying it is outside the timelines provided by the court.
For the court said this, and with your kind permission, if I may quote it. I hold a view that the application before us cannot be entertained under Rule 5
in my opinion, where a party has difficulty or is in doubt at what steps to take, where there are no express practice of procedure provided, the party must apply to the court for directions rather than, and this is my emphasis, rather than arrogate to himself the powers given to the court under Rule 5.
These are Amenuvo.
Yes, my lord.
You see, he came under mutual discovery. That is Order 21-1. Yeah. Then when you look at the proceedings, we've gone beyond that because there was no response from you. And when you do not, allow inspection or whatever of documents, then you can resort to an application under 21-9.
Yes.
And this is the application you are determining. Yeah. So look at the Cogles case again, whether you can look at Rule 5 of the CI system and apply it to the circumstances.
So my lord, I refer to the Cogles case in order to make the point of the timing of this application. Yes, my lords. The timing of this application.
Do you have any time frame after the failure of mutual discovery?
My lords, when you are proceeding.
No. Respond to the question. What I'm saying, that beyond mutual discovery, do you have any time frame set down under Order 21?
No, my lord, you have to apply to the court.
Yeah, and this is the application you are determining.
Yes, my lord, so the point is that, with the greatest respect, the point is that where CI 99, under which the presidential election petition is filed, talks about timeousness, then when you make an application at a particular point in time, in responding to the application, with the greatest respect to the court, we are entitled to make the point as to the timely nature or otherwise of the application.
Is representing the Electoral Commission, which is the first respondent. Well, Akoto-Ampao, who is lawyer for the second respondent, President Akufo-Addo, argues that the first petition, John Mahama, failed to produce, or the petitioner John Mahama failed to produce documents to back the petition, and decision to grant the application will lead to an expedition and undue delay of the hearing.
By the admission of his own witnesses and by law has photocopies of all carbonized copies of all the processes from the polling station right up to the regional level, and then even to the National Coalition Center. They have copies of all the documents through carbonized copies. Therefore, where the petitioner raises a question about the authenticity of any document, he must first produce what he has and show that what he has is different from what the other party has.
So this was the argument about whether or not the counsel for Mr. Mahama should be allowed to inspect those documents. Well, the judges say no new evidence has been given by the petitioner to warrant the court granting that application for the original documents to be handed over to him, the petitioner. Listen to Justice Eninyebua read the ruling.
There are issues of facts between the parties. The court will generally make such an order. However, in the instant case, the applicant has not raised any issue that he has no copies of the documents of the subject of this application. In view of the fact that the proceedings so far shows the petitioner has copies of all the documents, the subject of this application, we are of the opinion that no proper case has been made before us to warrant the exercise of our discretion in favor of the applicant. Order 21 Rule 9 of CR 47, which is the basis of this application, should not be read in isolation. It should be read in conjunction with Rule 11 of the said order. It states thus: an order for the production of any document for inspection or to the court shall not be made under any of these rules unless the court is of opinion that the order is necessary either to dispose fairly the cause or matter or to save cost. End of quote. Furthermore, Section 166 of the Evidence Act, NRCD 323 of 1975, makes it clear that a duplicate of a document is admissible to the same extent as the original unless a genuine question is raised as to authenticity of the original of the duplicate. No issue has been raised against the authenticity of the duplicates in possession of the applicant. The discrepancies which learned counsel for the petitioner has alluded to in his submissions as having occurred in the declaration of 9th December 2020, the press release of 10th December 2020, and the answer and witness statement of the first respondent are issues of evidence and do not give cause for discovery of the documents under consideration. From the above reasons, the application is dismissed.
And that's the Chief Justice there giving the ruling earlier today. And this is just a little reminder to let you know what to do, especially if you happen not to be alone. Mask up. Let's deal with coronavirus. There's more news at myjoyonline.com. I'll urge you to log on, share the links with your friends, and encourage them to take a look. This video, this program, and all the others are on demand on our YouTube link. I'll urge you to take a look as well. My name is Gifty Ando Apia. God willing, we'll see you tomorrow.